Hey there, welcome back to the course. Great job in completing that last video. In this video, I'm going to show you how we can create an even more customized UI table view cell. And we're going to be doing this with stack views again, except for we're going to use two stack views this time. And one of them is going to be nested within another stack view. So you'll know exactly how to do that by the end of this video. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at this completed app just so you have an idea of what we're doing. You can also open up the iOS Notes app on your phone and see this exact kind of setup, okay? So the first thing we need to do is we need to head over to our code and we need to create another cell file. So let's go into our cells and let's create a new file. And this is obviously going to be a Swift file. And we're just going to say folder NoteCell, or we could just call it NoteCell. Okay, so call it NoteCell. Go ahead and put it in there. Import UIKit as always. And let's say class NoteCell, UITableViewCell, and our initializer that we did in the last video. So let's see, it's not auto-populating. Give it a second. We could always do this too. Let's just go over to the folder cell and let's copy this initializer. You could also just type it out, but okay, there we go. That's so annoying. All right, type in init, hit return, super.init, return, style, reuse identifier, and hit that and hit fix. And a lot of people, and that wasn't supposed to go out there. Let's go ahead and put it in here. Okay, this has been a jumble already. Just go ahead and get this code in there, okay? My Xcode is acting up, but essentially you just need this code, right? And a lot of people are probably wondering, okay, well, why don't you just type it out? And the reason is because it's a waste of willpower. Like, that's a real thing. You have limited willpower in a day, and that's why you want to take advantage of these autocomplete things. It makes things a lot easier, and it retains your willpower for the day so you can do more. All right, so that error shouldn't be there. We should be good to go. Let's go ahead and compile our app just to make sure that that error is not there, and we should be good, okay? So if you've been watching and you're just really confused at this point because of how jumbled up that video was at the beginning, just go ahead and pause it and get this code in the notecell.swift file. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to go and use this custom cell. And just so we know we're using it, let's say content view dot background color is equal to dot cyan. And then let's head over into our folder notes controller and let's go to where we're registering it. And instead of registering the UI table view cell, let's register note cell. And then let's go down to our DQ and cast it as a note cell. So I'm doing this pretty fast just because we've already done this before. Let's go ahead and compile our application. And you should be able to see that cyan color inside of each folder set of notes, okay? I'll head back to the note cell as that is compiling. Okay, so we need a few things. We need a note title. Let's jump in here. You'll see it's cyan. Okay, so we need a title. We need a date label. And then we need the preview label, okay? And then we need a stack view, a vertical stack view. And then we need a horizontal stack view. Okay, so let's go flip over to the completed app just so you know exactly what we're doing. Okay, so note title, date label, preview label, pretty straightforward, right? So what we need to do is we need to have a vertical stack view to contain the title and the horizontal stack view. And then the horizontal stack view contains the date label and the preview label. So I hope that makes sense. Let's go ahead and code it up. I'll get rid of this and I'll say file private var note title is of type UI label. And you can call that note label if you want, so it matches date label and preview label. And then what we can do is just say let label is equal to UI label and then return label. Let's also give it a font and some text. So we'll say label.text is equal to places to take photos. And then I'm going to say label.font is equal to uifont.systemFont of size 16 and medium, because we want it to be a little bit bolder there, right? All right, so this is going to be pretty similar for the date and preview label. There's just going to be differences in the font and text color. So I'll copy that, paste it for date label, call it date label, and then I'll paste it for preview label, and I'll call this one preview label. Okay. Now, starting with the date label, we just want to change the text to something like, I don't know, let's do what today's date is, or somewhere around today's date. I'll just say 4/05/19. I don't know. That's not today's date. It's coming up, but that's what I'll put. Or I'll just put 9/15/97. All right. Now what we'll do is we will change this to 14 and a light font weight. And then now let's go down to the preview label, and we'll just say the note text will go here to create a preview. Okay. And then that should get cut off. Okay. Now what we want to do is change this to 13, and we'll change it to .light. And then let's go back up to here and say label.textColor is equal to .gray. And then in here, we'll just say label.textColor is equal to UIColor.gray, because we want to use with alpha component on it. Creates and returns a color object that has the same color space and component values as the receiver, but has a specified alpha component. So basically the color gray, but with about a 0.8 opacity. So it's slightly invisible, like it's slightly translucent. That will give it a little more of a gray look, a little more of a light gray look. You can also feel free to modify it to look however you want. I'm just doing that because I think it looks a lot like the Notes app. Okay, so that's our labels. We finally have those. Now we just need the vertical stack view, and we should honestly swap these because it makes more sense to mess around with the horizontal stack view first. So we have something to put in the vertical stack view, right? So what we need to do is declare that stack view by saying file private var, and we'll just say horizontal stack view. And this is a good time to pause and get all this code in if you are behind a bit. So feel free to pause and get this code in before you continue. All right, and then we'll say this is of type UIStackView, and we'll set that equal to a function that returns itself. And then we will say, or calls itself, and we'll say let s is equal to UIStackView. And the arranged subviews are simply going to be the date label and the preview label, okay? And then we just have to return the stack view and then give it some properties. So we'll say s dot translates auto resizing mask and constraints as false. Well, we don't need to set that yet, if at all. And we'll just say that the s dot axis is vertical, right? Or horizontal. And by default, it's horizontal anyway. And we might have to change a few more properties. I'm pretty sure we actually do, but I just want to show you because that way you're actually going to understand it, right? I don't want to just type it all out and then compile it. That way you won't really understand it, right? This way you will. So we get this error again, and we ran into this before. And the reason we did is because these things are not declared. They don't really, this stack view doesn't know that these exist yet. So what we need to do is mark this as lazy, file private lazy var, so that these will all instantiate and be available before this one runs, okay? Okay, let's go ahead and compile our app and just make sure that it works. All right, we should be good. And before we can really know what properties we have to change here, we actually have to put it on the screen, right? So let's start with our vertical stack view by getting rid of this comment and copying our horizontal stack view and renaming it to vertical stack view. And then the arranged subviews are obviously going to be the title, so note title, and the whatever it's called, the horizontal stack view. I couldn't think there for a second. All right. Now, obviously, we want this to change to vertical. We know that without even compiling it, and we should be good, okay? So let's go ahead and let's throw this vertical stack view on the screen with some programmatic auto layout and then see what it looks like. We can also get rid of this background color. So we just want to say content view.add subview vertical stack. And we know from the first stack view we added in folder cell that we need to constrain it about 20 pixels from the left. And if we want to speed up this process a bit, we can just go into folder cell and we can take these constraints right here and go back into NoteCell and paste them in, and then just change stack to vertical stack view. Okay, so now we have our constraints in. I'll widen that a bit so that you can see it a bit better. All right, so that should constrain it in. Let's go ahead and give this a shot, and if it doesn't work, we will modify it. And we're gonna have to add in some spacing and possibly a couple other variables inside of these to get it to work. And I already know straight off the bat, this isn't going to work because we haven't really set translates auto resizing mask constraints to set to false on the vertical stack view. So let's go in. You'll see that you can't really see anything, and we get these errors. It says that basically we don't have constraints, right? Like we can't do these constraints. So I'm trying to find the very specific top part. Okay, so it says it's a lot because there's a lot of cells. So it says unable to simultaneously satisfy constraints. So what we need to do, and you'll even see here, it says if you're seeing NS auto resizing mask layout constraints that you don't understand, refer to the documentation. You can do that as well. But basically we need to set translates auto resizing mask into constraints to false. We need to set that to false. So let's say s.translates, a Boolean value determines whether the view's auto resizing mask is translated into the auto layout constraints. So we don't want it to auto resize. We just want to use our auto layout constraints. Okay. Let's go ahead and compile that and see what we are given. I'll pull that down so we can see our code a little bit better. And we should have our cells. Okay, so that looks good, except for it doesn't, right? And it's because we don't really have enough space for these cells. So what we need to do is we need to go into our controllers and go into our folder notes controller.swift file. And let's implement the height for row at method. And we need to return a value here similar to what we returned in the first controller, right? So in the first controller, what we did is we returned 50. But if you look at the notes app, you'll see that it's a bit bigger on this one. And we have a little bit more stuff in here, so it makes sense to return something like 60 instead of 50. So let's return 60 and make sure to override this function since we are using UITableView controller and we're not just straight up using a table view, okay? Okay, let us go back to our cell and let's go to the app here. And if we click into one of these cells, you'll see that it looks not good, right? Like we can't really see our cell. But you'll see when we click on it, it appears for a brief second, okay? So what we need to do is go back to our controller and we need to go to our cell for row at method and get rid of this text label, here's a note, because it's covering our entire cell. Okay, so compile that and wait for it to reload to your simulator or phone, whichever you are on. And when you go in now, you're gonna see this nice custom cell that isn't really spaced very well. So let's go add some properties to our stack view to finish off this video strong. So I'm going to command click into NoteCell and hit jump to definition. And I'm going to scroll down to my stack views, and this is where we're going to modify some of our code, okay? So let's say in horizontal stack view here, we want the spacing, s.spacing, to be 4. And that's actually, we want that to be about 10, and then we'll say 4 on the vertical stack view, okay? Because we want it to be a little bit less on the vertical axis, but we want it to be a little bit more. And I want to move this up right here just so it looks better. Being OCD about my code right now. Okay, there we go. So yeah, we just want a lot of spacing in between the date and the text, but then we don't want a ton in between the vertical. So we're using 4. But the thing is, we need to change the alignment so that everything kind of goes to the top or to the left of the stack view, but we'll do that in a second if we have to. Let's compile it and let's see what we're given, and then we'll make changes accordingly. Oof, okay, this is a lot of coding for one video. All right, my Apple Watch thinks that I'm exercising right now because I'm going so hard. All right, so there we go. Okay, that's why I was thinking vertical, because if you set spacing, it's going to mess things up a bit. So what we need to do is we need to go into our horizontal stack view and say s.alignment is equal to dot leading. And then if we compile that, it should pull it back a bit and it should look a bit better. And then I'm trying to think of what else we can do before ending this video, because we might need to reduce the spacing in the vertical or pull it up a bit. Okay, let's see, where did we go wrong? S.alignment in horizontal stack view is leading. We don't have any errors here. Okay, here's what we can do. This is a good tip. I'm glad that I'm running into this issue because I can show you a pretty good method of doing this. And it seems hacky, but it's honestly not a bad method. And I'm sure that even Apple developers do this, even though it seems really hacky. So let's go into preview label here and let's put a comma. And I know a lot of you are just going to hate this, but I'm just going to put a UI view in here and just initialize it like that. That will give us an empty space on the right, which will pull the preview label to the left. And I know someone's going to have a problem with it. Let me know in a review or the Q&A and I'll fix it if you want, if you have a better method. But it works great. All right, so that looks good, except for there's a little bit of space up there, right? So I don't want that space. So we need to add a constant to the top anchor. Or what we can do, this is a great opportunity to do this. Let's modify these constraints to do this. Let's take out all these constraints except for leading and trailing, so the top and bottom, and let's center it on the y-axis. That way I can show you how to do that as well. So we'll say vertical stack view dot center y anchor dot constraint is equal to content view dot center y anchor, and then I'll just activate that constraint, and it's going to perfectly put it right in the middle, and it's going to look fantastic. All right, let's click into a cell and we have our custom cell. Awesome. I hope you learned something in this video and in this section, and I'll see you in the very next video.